one, launch.
So a Tomahawk is a cruise missile, or most commonly a land attack cruise missile that has been developed by the US over several decades. They're most commonly seen being fired from ships or submarines, but there are ones you can fire from launchers on the land. And the suggestion is that they would provide some of these missiles, presumably with a launcher, for Ukraine to be able to strike deep into Russia and potentially attack military targets, energy, or other critical elements of the Russian military industrial complex.
Three, two, one, launch.
The advantages that a Tomahawk brings are that there are different variants, but they can range anywhere between 800 to sort of 1,500 miles. They don't have a huge warhead, but it is powerful and can attack hardened targets. And critically, they are very accurate. So they have a variety of different guidance systems that mean that they can be fired at something and hit a specific part of a target, within a meter or two, basically. The Russians would certainly have something to worry if these were actually delivered, because of the range and the precision of these weapons and the kind of targets that they could strike or threaten. That being said, the Russians have faced a number of similar challenges and have adapted slowly over time. So when guided multiple launch rocket systems were provided for the battlefield inside Ukraine, Russian headquarters and supply points were badly hit, but then they began to move them back out of range. When Storm Shadow and Scalp arrived, they were very accurate and devastating, but the Russians have adapted over time with their defenses and have put up more extensive defenses. That hasn't prevented those missiles getting through, but it means the Ukrainians need to be craftier in how they use them, use more decoys and other things. So Tomahawk is not a wonder weapon. It's unlikely to be supplied in the kind of quantities that would radically transform the war, but it will present a challenge that Russian air defenses will need to take into account. And indeed, that will be whilst we imagine the Ukrainians will be increasing their strikes using their own drones and cruise missiles. So it broadens the threat that the Russians are now having to deal with. I'm a bit skeptical these will turn up. Um, if they do, they're not going to be war winning, but the Ukrainians will be able to use them to do serious damage to something. And I think it would be an interesting change in the US position because I think it would be like, here you go, because they would have to provide so much intelligence and data that they would be supporting the use of these weapons. That would be a big deal. It is a step up in support if they materialize. But if you're Ukrainian, I think you would argue with some force that it is a response to the increased Russian air attacks. We're now seeing hundreds of drones, the Geran 2. Which is in itself really a cruise missile now, copied from the Iranian Shaheds. We have seen continued strikes by Russian ballistic and cruise missiles against Ukrainian military and civilian targets. And you can expect to see them targeting Ukrainian infrastructure, the power grid, and other things like that as the winter approaches again. So I think if you're Ukrainian, this is all fair and ideally would be some kind of indication that the US isn't going to completely disengage. The US does provide these weapons, then I think there will be many within NATO and Europe who will find that heartening because it represents a reversal or at least a slowing of the trend of, if you like, the rhetorical disengagement of the US from this conflict and from European security. I mean, it's very much a material contribution that runs against some of the ways that the president has been talking about supporting Ukraine. I mean, he has made more US military equipment available to buy by European countries to give to Ukraine. But a donation like this would be actually the first major military support agreed by the Trump administration, as opposed to delivering weapons that had been previously approved by the Biden administration.